Hi, and welcome back to another edition of the Golden Aces Nation podcast, along with the Hall of Fame voice of the Golden Aces, Scott Allen. I'm Kyle Peach. Mount Carmel's football team coming off a win over the Newton Eagles on Friday night, 30-8, the final score in a game that never really ended. I guess it did. With 8 minutes and change left, weather brought the game to a close. Newton, the officials, everybody decided we're not coming back. This thing is done, and the Aces get the win. Scott, there's a first time for everything.
Yeah, I haven't had that happen before. I know we've had games spread over 2 days and all of an evening, a full evening, but nothing like an actual stoppage. But I guess in a way you don't blame them. The officials they weren't coming back on Saturday, a 3 hour trip home to Champaign and come back and apparently Newton, they got a bus trip and they got cheerleaders and a football team and everything else, and all their parents and staff. They don't want to come back. So all things considered, probably the best option. I know some schools had gone and rescheduled games for Monday, and boy, that would have really pinched this game against Paris if we would have just been finishing up the Newton game on Monday with the chance of an injury, et cetera. So yeah, all things considered, probably the best option. But you know what, you know, we were comfortably ahead, but Newton was moving the football. So it's been interesting to see if our defense could have risen to the occasion. They had done it all night. Would they have done it on that particular drive, and then maybe given the offensive ball to march down the field and cement the game? Maybe a couple more scores to make it look a little better in the papers. Who knows? But it is what it is, 30-8, and it's a win.
Potentially, Newton going to score to make it a two-score game in a game that they've already recovered one onside kick. That on the opening kickoff
Hmm.
caught us by surprise. So who knows? But the game is over, and the Aces get the win, led by Elliot Acree's 157 yards on the ground. Mount Carmel had 281 yards in total offense, all of it rushing, 0 for 4 through the air. Shane Metter, 60 yards on 6 carries. Andrew Militonia carry for 39 on the score. Jackson Kling, 4 carries for 17, and Rhett Andrews, a jet sweep run for 8 yards, accounting for the Aces offense. Mount Carmel lost the onside kick, but that was really our only turnover of the ball game. So you talk about trying to play mistake free, and the Aces did a pretty good job of doing that.
Yeah, and here we are again talking about our young kids. So we've got not your not your normal amount of youth. I mean, this is an extraordinary amount of youth on this team this year, not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of freshmen. What do you have? Two in there playing, one starter, one that came in, they played quite a bit. And yet here they were, and not just so much on offense. I mean, we've moved the football a little bit on offense now, but I like the way our defense responded with all these young kids to the bit of adversity that we had early on. We didn't let our dauber down. We didn't, here we go, and allow Robinson to get out of the gate, and suddenly we're under the gun all night. It wasn't one of those deals at all. Granted, Robinson didn't get ahead, but then we marched down the field and took charge in the third quarter with a couple of scores in that game, and maybe would have put it away in the fourth. So all things considered, yeah, here we get our kitty cord did extremely well given the situation, and I was kind of impressed with Newton, to be honest with you. An 0-3 team. They gave us a little bit more of a battle than even Robinson had the week before. So, and Robinson was kind of a high scoring team, but boy, Newton stayed with it. And so, and you know what? We need that kind of stuff, especially with the youth on this team. We've got to be challenged, and we've got to get put to the nth degree in terms of adversity and everything else, so that we learn and live and learn to get better. This team, just to imagine the way this team's going to get put together in a couple of years, even next year, with all the experience we'll have back. But for now, it is what it is, learning experience, and we're still working on the passing game. We've got to get it going. We'll have to solve it eventually, and we will, but it'll just take a while. That'd be nice if we're making progress. As it is, I'm sure the coaches are introducing more stuff this week than we had last week, and what we saw at a couple of formations are new this week. So slowly but surely, they're getting the game plan put together and plays added and everything else, and on defense as well. So the kids are still getting opportunities to learn, getting opportunities to perfect themselves, and 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 early in the season that I was talking about, this is just a youthful team. Can we gain from experience? Well, Aces fans over the course of years have seen countless Aces teams that have been young in terms of experience wise, but really there hasn't been one as inexperienced as this team. And so, is it fair for us as fans and followers to expect the normal kind of improvement week to week by an Aces team that's young. This is such a young team that maybe we're even pushing it to expect our normal kind of response to being young. So it's okay. We got to give this team maybe a little broader stroke to work with, a little more time to get it perfected. But you see it every week. They're getting better on offense and defense. We saw the way the defense didn't give up early on. They, like I said, they responded to that little punch in the mouth early on, and we sucked it up and stopped them on offense there, and went from there. So again, it's like we've seen. This is a very young team, but all things considered, week four we're doing okay. We're 2-0 in the conference. That's all that matters really. We've got two more wins towards the playoffs, and so things are going okay. They're getting better.
Yeah, and this Effingham team that beat us kind of in a close ball game a couple of weeks back, they're 3-1. Gibson Southern is 4-1, ranked
Yeah.
third in the state of Indiana. So we went through a rigorous non-conference schedule and kind of seeing the fruits of where we are now with two conference wins. And I think Newton's going to win some games in the LIC.
Yeah. Yeah, and as our teams, another thing they did was Robinson was kind of a big play team, and they kind of shut them down a little bit. We saw Newton run a big pass play against us, so they had they had the ability to run big plays too. And we're going to run into other teams that are fully capable of that. And you'll talk more about Paris here in a minute. And they've got a team much like well, really Newton that and if we're not ready for them, they'll compete with us too. So. It isn't going to get any easier in this conference race as we get closer to week 7 in Paris and Alney, which is still knocking them around in the league the way they're off and running. So it this is going to be. We knew that it was backloaded this conference schedule, and surely that's the way it seems to be playing out.
Yeah, I think that the 2 weeks, not to take anything away from Paris, but the two
Yeah,
weeks after Paris are probably the two biggest weeks in LIC play. But this is a good step up for the Aces, moving from Newton now to Paris on the road with a team that, like Mount Carmel, is 2-2, like Mount Carmel's 2-0 in league play, started the season 0-2, and then found their footing in conference play. Jeremy Clodfelter in his ninth season at the helm. He kind of ruffled some feathers when we were there a couple of years back at Paris, where we would got a big lead and took our starters out. He kept his kids out there and actually did some onside kicks and scored a couple scores late. We put our starters back in, and that was kind of contentious. But no doubt he's a veteran coach, and they're building too. Two losses, now two wins, and now the Big Mount Carmel game for the Tigers coming up on Friday night.
yeah. And this is a Tigers team that bears a little bit of resemblance to a couple teams we've already seen in the conference, right?
Yeah, they pretty much mix it up, pass and throw. They've rushed 100 times. They've thrown 71. They have 780 some yards on the ground, 570 on the through the air. So a pretty good pass to rush ratio to kind of keep defenses guessing. Their leading rusher is Mason Burns. He's carried it 46 of the 109 times they've carried the football. He's got 552 yards on just 46 carries. He's a
Mhm.
big play kind of back, averages 12 yards a carry, busted a couple of long 60 plus yard runs last week in their win against Lawrenceville. So we got to find Burns in the backfield. Their second leading rusher is their quarterback, Drew Rogers, 36 carries for 106 yards. So those two combined over 80 carries of their 109. Those are the two guys predominantly to watch for this ball club.
Well, that's an exciting challenge in for this young defense. I mean, they've already checked off one box. They've kind of slowed Robinson's big play offense down. This will be a big challenge, the biggest of the year. Then, if we can slow down a guy who's getting 12 yards a carry through 4 weeks, he's faced four different teams and still putting up those kind of numbers. So this kid must be for real. So can Mount Carmel slow him down? What a great challenge for these young guys.
Now, it should be fun to watch how we can adjust to that. Drew Rogers, their quarterback, 38 of 73 through the air, 573 yards, four touchdowns, four picks. This is a team who's fumbled four times. They've also thrown four interceptions, so a little bit of kind of turnover prone, if you will, with averaging an interception and a fumble per ball game. They
Mhm.
have missed one field goal attempt. That's the only one they've taken. It was right before halftime in a game earlier this year. They're 9 of 13 on point after tries. They do have an interception return for touchdown defensively. So, again, kind of a step up for the Aces in terms of competition, I think, this week against a school that's similar to Mount Carmel in size, maybe even a little bigger, and a good LIC tune-up for the two big weeks with Olney and Casey to follow.
And I know you've talked about the weather too off and on in our conversations leading up to this, and it's possible that whereas some of the tri-state's going to feel the remnants of the hurricane, it may not get as far north as Paris, right?
Yeah, well, I think it will rain. How
Yeah,
much
yeah.
rain? I don't think. I think we're talking about a couple of inches here. I think we're talking about a half inch there. So some rain for sure, but maybe not the deluge that we're forecasted to see here. But I think rain could be a factor. If nothing else, wet turf will be a factor on
Yeah,
Friday.
and I don't think wind will really be either, though in high school football doesn't necessarily, you don't need a lot of wind to cause havoc sometimes. And of course, we really don't per se have a kicking game, but we do have a punting game. So you never know. But let's hope that's not a factor at all. All right. I know, Kyle, I've got story time later on. I got to tell you a Paris story now.
Let's
Okay.
do it.
This is so, in fact, you mentioned what's the series now between the two schools?
10 and 1 are the Aces all time. It was started in 1974 through 1980. They played, then it halted and resumed in 2020, the COVID season. The last Mount Carmel loss was in 1979. That was at Paris, where the Aces are 4 and 1 all time.
Well, I know the players probably don't remember this, but when we finished playing that last game at Paris in 1980 to finish the series, the thing about the Paris football stadium was the media, the visiting media, sat outside. There was no room for anybody, supposedly. And keep in mind, in the years, the 4 years that I announced high school football before Mount Carmel, I was in Charleston. And of course, Charleston was in the Apollo Conference with Paris, so we would take yearly trips. And so we went to Paris. So I knew very well about Paris and how there was no place to sit with your media. We never understood that was a big enough press box. So anyway, so here's a story about the night we played. Charleston played Robinson in the rain. And keep in mind, Chuck Buddy's teams were very good in the late 70s. We had three straight teams go to the Class 3A semifinals. And yet that night, Robinson held us to a 3-0 win. We managed to get a kick away. That's all we did all night. As good as Charleston was, we just could not go in the slop. And it rained torrential the whole game. So meanwhile, all the area coaches that had come to scout the game, they're, of course, getting out of the elements. They're all cramming into the press box. You remember those days and a rainy, nothing like a high school press box in the rain when everybody's in the press box, standing shoulder to
Everybody's
shoulder.
media when it rains. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but here come the Paris scouts now. Okay. They're wanting in. And the Robinson people, God love them, would not let them in. They said, you know what? You make us sit outside in your press box. We don't understand why. So, nope, you're not coming in. And they would not, they had to stay in the rain and scout the whole night like that. And nobody minded. I'm sure everybody cheered for them, but that's just the way it was back then.
Yeah.
Now, I know in the modern era that doesn't sound very kind. And, but the old school in me goes, right on. So, but anyways, that really happened in 1980. They would not let the scouts, the coaches in from Paris into the Robinson booth because they weren't nice to us at Paris. So there's my Paris football story. So
You're telling me that when Tolono Unity finally does ever come to Mount Carmel, we can make them sit on the roof outside to call the game, their broadcast crew.
well, I know the administration won't, and the new school methodology would say, oh, you got to be nice, but I'm old school, and I'd go, yeah, that kick them out. No, they
Figure it
can't come
out.
in.
You're out of here. Yeah, love it.
I'd
Love
be nice about it, but yeah,
it.
yeah.
So we will have more from Scott and stories coming up, my favorite part of the broadcast. But let's talk a little bit about what has gone on. Actually, we want to go to an interview that you did with Aces Athletic Director Kyle Buss this week, actually.
Yeah, we had that interview a couple of days ago and touched on several topics. I always was amazed watching Kyle Buss operate in his administration role through the COVID uh, pandemic and all that meant because somebody had to, try somehow to allow our youngsters, our boys and girls, our athletes, some semblance of normality in a time when clearly it was not normal and they were changing seasons and changing dates. We're playing in the summer of 2021 when what, 2 or 3 seasons overlapping each other during that little short time frame, and we didn't play football in the fall of 2020. And he was an athletic director. Somebody had to make all these schedules fit that were not preset year after year after year. They were all brand new, all new dates. That means officials, that means everything. And then the rules would change and you'd redo everything again. So I was always amazed at the job he did in that role. He had no guidance on. He had to figure it out on the fly as well. So he did an outstanding job. And that was just one of the topics that we talked about in our conversation. Well, Kyle Buss is in year 6 as athletic director at Mount Carmel High School. Of course, he's a former Golden Aces star athlete, and he's been at the school longer than he's just been AD. But first of all, Kyle, thanks for the time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Anytime we can talk Golden Aces athletics, I'd love to be a part of it.
Yeah, and kind of unique angle that you bring, of course, in athletic directorship, and the fact that you played here and starred here and et cetera, and grew up in Mount Carmel. Now, what's that mean to you now that you're an athletic director? You're in charge of things now at your alma mater.
Sure, yeah. I love being from Mount Carmel, born and raised here, and then just being able to give back and to help, all of our sports teams, all of our athletes try to have as much success as humanly possible. I'm just, so lucky to get to do it because I do love, the ins and outs of the job. And again, just being able to, hopefully set up most of our athletes to have some success on the field, off the field, and to watch them, go through their high school careers and grow up. It's a really fun part of the job.
Kyle, you went through, you were athletic director during one of the roughest patches I think we'll see in the next few generations. Who knows, with the COVID era, and where a lot of us just thought it was, well, for me, it was a pre-retirement special. I got to see what living at home every day would be like, and now I'm retired, so it was great for me. But for athletic directors around the state, and you in particular, it was in a way nonstop, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was schedules that needed to be remade up multiple times. There was so many different rules that the state came out and said, indoor sports can do this and have to do this. Outdoor sports have to do this and can do this. And so, yeah, just trying to make sure we were doing everything possible to give our kids the opportunity to play. I know it obviously wasn't the greatest thing in the world, playing basketball games in an empty gym and things like that. But, just all of the different hoops we had to jump through to be able to play athletic contests was a huge obstacle. And again, it was just a lot of changing. And, if a COVID case broke out in one school, then you had to do this and you had to do that and cancel this and move this. Cause again, we're trying to give our kids the most opportunities to play. And, when one game would get canceled, we tried to do whatever we could to find another team to play. Cause, your high school career is very limited, and to have some of it wiped out because of COVID, I just felt horrible for those kids. So we just tried to do whatever we could to get them opportunities to play.
And for example, in football, how many reschedules did you do? Did you put together? I mean, I know you released them at certain times when we thought we had a schedule or it was going to be okay until they changed the rules. But how did you even find these guys?
Yeah, so the football one was weird. Number one, because we're playing in the spring, so
Yeah.
that was a change in itself. And then some of the parameters that the state put out there said that you could only play either conference schools or schools within a certain vicinity of you, so 30 miles or 45 miles. Well, for us, we're not in a conference yet, so we're kind of stuck. Luckily, the LIC schools, we were going to get into the LIC 1 year later. They said, hey, for this spring, you can go ahead and be a part of the conference. That way we got in under those rules and could play the Floras, who is still in the LIC, Paris, and some of those other schools that were in the LIC and needed and wanted games. That's kind of how that came about and worked out for us. So luckily we got to play a full COVID schedule, as you will, in the spring.
Yeah, yeah, that was great that the LIC kind of took us in. That was a pivotal time after we thought we were headed to district play, and then everybody got cold feet and nixed that, and so we're just left hanging at that point.
Yeah, that was a weird, time too, because, we left the Big Eight. We told them we were leaving because the state was going to come out with these districts. Well, then a year later, they shoot down the districts, and now we're just sitting there with no conference. And Luckily, there was some other changes going on in Illinois with different conferences, with the Apollo and the Black Diamond and the River to River. So I think there was enough movement and shuffles there for us to have a spot. And like you said, yeah, very, very thankful for the LIC schools, because I think it's been a great partnership now for the last 5 years that we've been in it.
Yeah. Kyle, when you look at officials, I really probably don't have to look any further back than last week's game with the weather delay and everything else. Had we decided to play, or both sides had decided to continue that game at some point, what would have been the final option, do you think? Monday night? Was it going to be on Saturday, or could you even begin to fathom?
Yeah, luckily the conversations didn't really get that deep, with where we were at in the game. But yeah, I know Edwards County and Hamilton County, they finished on a Monday night. Saturday would have been ideal, but you got homecoming and you got just a lot of other factors going on that, not to mention the official shortage. The crew that we had, that they were going to another game Saturday, so they weren't really available. So yeah, I mean, just having to change that date and change the game and then if you change it to Monday, now you're looking at playing yesterday, Monday. And then, your next week is short. You're trying to get ready for your next opponent on the Friday, and it just throws everything off. So, luckily we got to a decision where, the game was 8 minutes left. It was a 3-score game. And we decided to just end it at that and call the game then.
Yeah, and the officials were from Champaign. They didn't want to come back either, probably, right, on a Saturday.
No, and they did a great job all night long. They saw the light. Every change of possession, we had the radar up on our app. We were in conversations with the officials. They said, that lightning that we were seeing was either heat lightning or lightning that was from a storm that was 5 or 10 miles north. So they were great the whole time through that whole process. They did eventually see one lightning bolt that kind of came from cloud to ground. Then there was some thunder. So that lightning accompanied with the thunder, they decided that, or we all decided that it was we needed to suspend it for the time being. And then it was just kind of weird. There was no rain. There was hardly any wind, but that lightning was just off to the north there that we could see it. And, it was still kind of, putting everybody at the event at risk. So we had to suspend it. And then, by the time we had made our decision at 10 or 10:15, whatever time it was, then that's when the big storm kind of came and hit, and we wouldn't have been able to get that game in.
Yeah. So when you discuss the official shortage, give us an idea, I guess, from your position as one who has to deal with it directly, of how critical we are at this point, and then help us understand what it's going to take to get out of this critical situation.
Yeah, people complain about referees all the time, and I was one of them for the longest time, and still am sometimes. But if we don't have those guys, we don't play. So the thousands of people that were at the football game Friday night, if we don't have officials, that game doesn't get played. Homecoming is ruined. There's just a lot of different, and not just football, but for soccer and for basketball and volleyball. I mean, it's every sport that the pool of officials is just so limited now, that if you want to complain about the officiating, you can, but you're not coming down and saying, oh yeah, hey, I'd like to ref, or I'd like to umpire. A lot of people like to kind of officiate from the stands, when it's not easy being that one or two officials that are down there making calls that could affect the game one way or the other. So it's hard. We need more young people that are encouraged and want to do it and help out. And, thank goodness our school board helped out a bunch this year. They voted to up the pay, because we talked to the officials Friday night. They do most of their games for $85 or $90 up there in Central Illinois. And he said they opened up their check and got the $120 from us, and we're very thankful. And I think that helps kind of compensate, them driving all the way from Champaign 2.5 hours, that extra little bit of money, that along with us, giving them a meal after the game. I think that just kind of helps, keep people wanting to come to Mount Carmel. Because, with the shortage that there is, we need as many people that want to come do our games as possible.
Yeah. How far are you scheduled in football? I've always been amazed when I hear the stat, but.
Yeah. We just signed a crew for 2028. So in 2028, we got a crew for our week 2 game right now. So It's not completely full, but it is nice to get people on the schedule. Cause again, you just don't know. I mean, I hope in a couple years, more and more people are wanting to get into officiating. They see how, much they're getting paid to do it. And hopefully, that the official shortage comes to an end here sometime soon.
Yeah. So you were obviously a multi-sport star at the Hilltop. Your name was in the record books, I think, for a while. I don't know, is it still there? Or is it? But it was at least there for a while.
I don't know. We didn't throw the ball quite as much
Yeah.
as we have in the last few years. So I think most of those records are probably long gone by now.
But so, what are you most proud of your high school athletic career?
I just think our team success that we had, with our football team, our basketball team, our baseball team, just the success and the relationships that we built with my group of friends, but between the grades above us, below us, I'm still best friends with 80% of the guys that played with us. So just the relationships that we have and continue to have to this day is super special and important to me. I live next door to one of my best friends and middle linebackers at Keepus. Trey Beckerman, Cliff Mobley, those linemen that blocked for me and win. They're in a group message that we talk every day. So just the relationships that we had, the success that we had, regional championships in basketball, a sectional championship in basketball, going to semi-state in football and losing by a point. Great run to the quarterfinals our junior year and unfortunately get injured. Just all the different memories and stories we have to tell with that group of guys is just really, really special to me.
Yeah, Mount Carmel is a special place, isn't it? I mean, pound for pound, this is as athletic a town as there is in the state.
Yeah, I think we're extremely blessed. We have a lot of great support of people that care about athletics and want our athletic teams to succeed. Just because I know it's not like that everywhere. So Mount Carmel definitely has the school board support, the town, the community support, and the kids buy into what we're doing around here. And they work hard. We got weight training specialists. We got athletic trainers that help keep us safe and things like that. So we're just very, very blessed with all of the tools that we have and we need to be successful like we have been.
Well, I think one of the nicest things that's happened here as of late has been the creation of the Hall of Fame and now the ongoing induction ceremonies that are going on. I know you've got one coming up here for homecoming week. I mean, you're going to end up there one of these days. There's little doubt about that. But I know in the meantime, first things first. I know you work with this committee that helps pick it, and with the school board and everything else. It's great to see that everybody's starting to get behind this Hall of Fame now.
Sure. Yeah. You looked around at a lot of neighboring schools and a lot of them already had one going. So I'm glad that, the Booster Club kind of started this up a few years ago and kind of got the ball rolling. So yeah, it's great to have. It's great to honor those great athletes of the past, great teams and coaches of the past, because we have had so much success. So I think a town and a school of our caliber with all the different championships and records and awards that, the Booster Club did a great thing getting us started and kind of recognizing and honoring those past great athletes.
All right, let's talk a little football now. Coach or assistant coach Kyle Buss is also the athletic director. I don't know how you get it all done, especially in the fall. I don't, it's amazing. But so tell us, and not just the spring and the other seasons for that matter. So, what's a coach like you and your staff and the staff at Mount Carmel High School? This is such a completely different team than we had last year, with the virtual new guys. One of the smallest clubs we've had, one of the youngest clubs that we've had. So learning has been at the epicenter for this year's club, so what? How does that change your approach as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, we really had to go back to the basics, especially defense, yes, but offense too. I mean, just learning a new offense. It was hard for everyone. I mean, we had to make sure that we had people in the right spots and things like that first, and then kind of learn on the fly, because when you put a whole new offense in, there's different rules and there's different techniques that need to be learned. So I think that was kind of some of the learning pain early on, and I think our offense has done a great job and has gotten better and better each week. So that's been nice to see kind of the progress of that. defensively, same thing. We brought back, I think, one starter, maybe two, from a group last year. So just a lot of different kids and a lot of different spots, and we're having to learn. And then just with not being as deep, we just don't have a ton of kids to, when one kid gets injured or hurt or, whatever it may be, we have to shuffle so many different parts around that it makes it a little difficult. But our kids have done a great job. They've bought in, really, really proud of them. I know we can get better, and we will get better, but we ask a lot of them. We have very, very high expectations of them. It doesn't matter if you're a freshman or a senior, but if you haven't played or whatever, we hold them to a very high standard, and we coach them hard. We want them to, succeed as much as anyone. So, we're going to coach them up. We're going to coach them hard. And because we need all of them to be successful when we have as few kids as we have.
And for that matter too, Coach, I think it shows in the players, and we can see it vis-a-vis other teams that we play. Our kids are more hungry, and they're more aggressive. Even as young as this club is, there's no hanging their heads or woe is me or maybe next year. I mean, there's none of that going on.
Yeah, they've had a great attitude. That they've all kind of came in knowing they got to fight for a spot. There's a lot of starting spots open. You got to come in. There's no spots given out. We're going to keep trying to put the best 11 kids out there that we can. So yeah, you got to stay hungry. You got to keep fighting. And I think that's what Mount Carmel's always kind of, hung their hat on, is just being super physical and relentless, and, just keep going and going and going, because I think the more the game goes on, especially the style of offense we're running this year, we're leaning on people, we're pushing on people for, 2-3 quarters. And by the time that fourth quarter comes, the other team is just gassed. So I think that benefits us. And like you said, yeah, we just have great kids that, continue to fight and are relentless.
And Coach, just one final comment too about the overall athletic department. Man, you've got a nice group of coaches, and we've got a nice group of athletes. I mean, you can go back to last spring with baseball and go on to this year with girls golf, and it goes on and on. You've got a lot of coaches that are dedicated to their cause too.
Absolutely. We're so lucky, and I hope our community and our fans know and understand how lucky we are to have the coaches that we have, that not only know a lot about the sports, but also really, really care about our kids. Because that's what it's all about. We do all this stuff that we do for the kids. It's not for mom and dad. It's not for, grandma and grandpa. We do it so the kids can have the best opportunity in their 4 years of high school. So we're very lucky to have the coaches that we have that lead our group of young adults, not only on the field or course or court, but on the street. There's a lot of time that we spend in buses and traveling to and from games where there's just good conversation with coaches and players, and you get to know a lot about your kids, and you just become a family. And I think that's important. I think, the players need to know that the coaches care about them. And I think our coaches do a great job of, being a big part of our student athletes' lives.
Yeah. All right, there, everybody. As part of Mount Carmel Royalty, it's Kyle Buss, the athletic director of Mount Carmel High School. Kyle, thanks for the time.
Hey, I appreciate it, guys. Go Aces.
Scott's talk with Aces athletic director Kyle Buss, KB. He does a great job. Obviously, was a player for the Aces, a great quarterback in his time, basketball player too. Part of teams that darn near went to the state finals. I think we said he lost 3 games by 3 total points in his junior and senior years. What a wild run! And now doing a great job as AD.
And boy, what a job even as softball. He brought that program back too. So
yeah, regional champions in softball, and I think wins the title as most state championships at Mount Carmel as athletic director. Thanks
by far
to
with the girls golf team, right?
Yes, but hey, he was captaining the ship, so to speak.
Yep. He gets credit for it.
Congrats to Kyle Buss, and many more years of continued success in that job. For KB. Let's talk about what's going on in Golden Aces Nation. And by the way, one more KB story. We'll talk about soccer in a moment. Athletic directors don't have to go to every sporting event your teams play in, but I had to point out I ended up stopping by the Mount Carmel Soccer Aces game against North Posey on Monday night, and Kyle Buss was there watching the game as it unfolded. And so, not everybody does that. But Kyle Buss was doing that on Monday night, and again, props to him for all he does. Speaking of the Soccer Aces, it's been a little bit of a rough go for them. Ed Burbrick's team, very, very young. this year without seniors on the roster. I do believe that's correct. Thursday they lost to Newton 6-0. Monday they fall to North Posey 9-2, and then Tuesday lost to Evansville Central 12-0. They're home Thursday against Olney as you're watching this on Thursday. So best of luck to the soccer aces trying to get back to their winning ways. The
Well,
amount,
one of the busiest schedules, but one of the busiest
yeah,
weeks of the year for them too.
yeah, going to be a little. The legs are going to be fatigued. The
Hmm.
team that has not had many substitutes because of injuries too, so they're going to be fatigued. But it is at home. It is a conference matchup with Olney, so best of luck to them. Thursday night, the tennis aces this week have lost to Casey 7-2 and to always powerful Carbondale 9-0. But let's talk about volleyball. Mount Carmel lost to Gibson Southern, but they beat Robinson late last week, 2-0, and they have a big matchup Thursday at Casey in LIC play. This is a team that is poised, probably some of the biggest challenges yet to come for them in volleyball. But I think Newton will be their biggest test. But the volleyball aces have a chance for an LIC championship.
Yeah, that would be great too, and it'd be back to back. They figured into last year's, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and so hopefully they can keep that goal
Hmm.
rolling with a win at Casey on Thursday. Probably the biggest story of the Aces week has been golf because Wednesday Mount Carmel hosted the boys and girls Little Illini Conference Tournament Championship, and both teams we have dual LIC titles. The boys and the girls
A
won
sweep, a sweep. Mm.
Sweet won the LIC championships. The girls probably a foregone conclusion that that was going to happen since they haven't lost since Lincoln was president, I think. But uh, the Lady Aces with a 293 on Wednesday. Robinson was second at 431. That's a 100 plus stroke win for the Lady Aces in the conference tournament. Emily Gottman led the way with a minus 567. That's 5 under. And all five of the Lady Aces were the top five finishers on the day. Just another wow moment
Yeah,
for the Lady Aces.
incredible, right? Mm.
Yeah, no doubt. And probably the best story though, because you know the Lady Aces are going to do it. The boys, they win it too. They had a 319, beat Olney by just 4 strokes at 323. Newton 2 strokes back of that at 325. And the Aces did it without capturing medalist honors. Colin Kelsey finished fourth at 78th, but how about this? Hatcher Knipe and Zane Wilcox, 2 strokes back, tying for fifth at 80. Those three, 4, 5, and 5 in the all-time lineup of that tournament individually yesterday helped propel the Aces to that conference tournament championship. So
Man,
congrats to the Aces.
yep, simply incredible.
They get the win. And that's all that's going on around Aces Nation here this past week. Congrats on all the wins and keep going for all the teams that are battling some youth and also those that are winning like champions that they are. We appreciate all your efforts and keep it up. One thing I did want to point out before we transition into another story here, Scott, is Wabash Valley College news from this week.
Hmm.
The Warriors announcing a new Wabash Valley Athletic Training Center for WVC athletes will be built on campus, ready for summer of 2025. It's primarily a soccer, baseball, and softball facility, 8,500 square foot space, lots of cages and adaptable space for athletes to work out in. It's going to be built there between the soccer, baseball, and softball fields, and that's a big time move for Wabash Valley athletes, and I'm sure Mount Carmel will probably see some benefits to it as well. But a big announcement this week in the world of athletics.
Boy, just a huge announcement to step forward for the facilities, and especially to give you some indoor facilities or workout arrangements of one kind or another with the weather the way it is. And it gives them more year-round flexibility now, too, in these sports.
Yeah, baseball and softball play fall seasons as well as the regular spring seasons. Soccer does kind of the reverse, plays a lot of the spring plus their fall season. So it'll be used year round and locker rooms too for those teams that really haven't had them before on campus. So that's great news coming from
Yep.
WVC. Let's talk a little bit of travel because one of the things that you and I get to do is make some lengthy road trips like we're going to do Friday, the long road trip up to Paris. But a few years ago, there were the WSJD Golden Aces football T-shirts of that time said we were the road warriors because we were going to travel so many miles over the course of that season, including a trip to Mendota.
That's right, up there between Bloomington and Rockford. That's for a regular season game now. And clearly that sets the record for regular season game travel. It was week 9, as I recall, that year. That was the same year we played another team from that conference, Spring Valley, at home in week 4. So how about that? We got paired with that conference, and lo and behold, here we are. So now you would think that I know my way around that part of the state. I'm from Peoria originally, and so I've always heard about Mendota growing up. They'd had some good sports success in various sports, and I was always kind of keen to the name Mendota anyway, and so roughly knew where it was. But you wouldn't think it. So I'm touring along. Of course, we were separate road crews then. So I was driving on my own, and I've got a station vehicle with me, and I'm just touring along, and I've gone north of Bloomington now on Interstate 39, and it doesn't seem to bother me, not paying attention too much, and then all of a sudden I see a sign that says Kankakee, so many miles away, and it's at this point that I'm getting a little nervous because it dawns on me that that is nowhere near Mendota, and I'm going the wrong way. I need to go more west and northwest in
A
a
lot,
hurry.
a lot more west.
Yeah, yeah, by many miles, and I'm running out of time because I didn't exactly start too early for the ball game. So I guess I let you know, right? At this point, did I call you or something from the car or
So as you said, we were in separate vehicles. I was
yeah.
doing the TV thing, you were doing the radio thing, and you called me, kind of panicked, like, why have I not seen anything that says Mendota? And while we're on the phone is when you say, why does that sign say Kankakee?
Mhm.
And that's when the gig was up, so to speak. So we knew we had to get you over west somehow in a station van that's not meant to go very fast.
No, it wasn't meant to go 90 consistently, and I had to figure out a route very quickly to get me there as quickly as I could. And they were all 2-lane roads at this point, and I'm literally going 90, and I'm not even worried. I'm going to eat a ticket. I'll probably get stopped, and I'll just pay it out of my own pocket. So, but I was going to make it to the game, and I didn't make it. I mean, I made it just in time, right?
Yeah.
I guess you were telling me I did the pregame show from the phone while walking into the stadium, right?
Well, we knew obviously it
I
was
don't even remember that.
we
Hmm.
knew it was going to be tight. We knew it was
Yeah.
going to be close. And I remember we're getting ready to go and starting our TV pregame show, which was much shorter than what you guys do then on the radio. And you're on the cell phone, carrying the equipment, walking up the bleachers, going to the press box to your seat there. So you were doing pregame show stuff from the car walking into the venue, I
Mm.
guess, and got seated just in time for kickoff. But as we say in this business where we do a lot of crazy things, it really doesn't matter how you get there. It's does the fan know anything's wrong? And on that day, I'm sure fans didn't have a clue how close they were to not hearing the game that day.
Yeah, that was special their time, but I tell you what, I've never had to drive so fast to get anywhere. I don't think that than that day to get to Mendota, so I didn't miss the beginning of the ball game. But anyway, and luckily we won that game, and it was an exciting game, as I recall, like 13-9 or whatever the final was, very close, and went on to the postseason from there.
Yeah, well, we talked about Road Warriors. That Spring Valley game was supposed to be at Spring Valley, but they backed out of a 2-year deal and said, oh, by the way, we're not coming to your place next year. And that's when we said, okay, well, then you're coming here this year. And so that kind of all got worked out where they came here instead of us going there. But I think, wasn't it that postseason we had turned right back around and go to Illinois Valley Central or something like that? What was that called? Was that postseason or not? Maybe it was a different year. We
Well,
went
I
back
know I
up
don't
kind
think
of
we
that way.
played. Yeah, I don't think we played at IVC, but we've and keep in mind that was a longer road trip than Byron, as I recall, the Mendota trip, if I'm not mistaken. Granted,
Right.
was the all-time winner for postseason, but Mendota was right there mileage-wise with Byron, and that was just a regular season game.
Yeah, it was a wild trip, and a wild trip awaits us on Friday night, the longest road trip of the regular season up to Paris. We love long road trips, not really. But we're headed up on another long road trip Friday night, 6 o'clock for the pregame show on WSJD Radio. We'll have the live video streaming on the News Channel 15 YouTube page for you as well. We joke, probably shouldn't say this, but most of the pregame show we do before we go on the road. So probably the 45 minutes of the hour-long pregame show is pre-recorded. So even though you're hearing the pregame show, there is no guarantee that yet we are in Paris ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, we may be flying 90 miles an hour up Route 1. Who knows? But
Back from
I think we'll be
Kankakee
there
because
in
we
I
yeah,
think
back
we'll
from
be there plenty of
Kankakee, we
time.
missed
So
it. Yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, we'll hope to see you from Paris on Friday night. Bring the ponchos if you're headed to the game because I think we'll see a little rain along the way. But 7 o'clock for the kickoff should be fun. Partner, always fun when we're together.
Oh, it's fun. Enjoy the road trips. Our time to talk uh, on the way up and get ready for the broadcast and tell more stories. We've always got more stories, so there's always plenty of that. But look forward to it, and we hope that you're. If you're not at the game, then watch us and listen to us here on Friday night.
And make sure, speaking of liking and watching, that you hit subscribe on our YouTube channel, Facebook page. Follow along with the Golden Aces Nation podcast. More fun, we promise, to come. If you'd like to sponsor us, let us know that too. We'll take your money gladly and throw whatever
You
ads up
bet.
on the screen you'd like us to do for you as well. That's the Hall of Famer, Scott Allen. I'm Kyle Peach. We'll see you next week on the Golden Aces Nation podcast.